Hi, welcome to the Career Corner. My name's Heather Swift, and I'm delighted to be your host. The purpose of the Career Corner is to help people move from career distress to career success. At the beginning of every year is the perfect time to reevaluate your goals, both professionally and personally. Here to help me do that is my special guest, Rich Largman, President and CEO of Empire of Hope. Rich, welcome back to the Career Corner.
Thank you very much. Glad to be back.
So if your business is called the Empire of Hope, that would make you the emperor, correct?
It does indeed. I'm kind of in my lower end thrones today.
I'm sorry. The jeweled ones were all taken out already.
I understand. But yes, I like to joke that sometimes that I am the emperor given the name of my company.
Well, there's not enough emperors around these days, so I think that's a very good call. I should say that on your business card.
I'm not that bold quite yet.
Not yet. No. Maybe you need a coach that can really help you with that.
That would be awesome.
So tell me, I know when we were talking earlier about the idea of being a business coach, that you've kind of upped the ante as to what that can mean in calling yourself a business accelerator?
Accelerator. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about this new title.
Well, I thought it was important to reestablish who I am and what I do. And I found that the term business accelerator really captures it, because I will often go into businesses that are doing well, they have a strong revenue stream, and they've got a number of employees in their business, but they're looking to take it to the next level. And for some reason or the other, they're stuck, and they just can't seem to solve the puzzle and make things work to get to the next level of success. And that's when I'll come in and accelerate their success in their business.
So are you finding yourselves that to really make that happen, you need to get buy-in at the top of the house?
Absolutely. That's
okay.
It's usually where I enter into a business. It's the CEO or one of the top managers that contacts me or finds me and brings me in. But it's always important to get buy-in from all of the management team. Otherwise, it's like pushing a rock uphill or dragging it uphill rather than having everyone kind of move in the same direction at the same time.
How difficult or how easy is that to get all the members of the team? I imagine there's one or two that might reach out to you or think, hey, this is broken and we don't want to break further, let's get it fixed. Let's have someone like Rich come in and work some magic. Are there some others that are like, it's fine, we've been doing it this way for 50 years, why change now? Do you run into that?
Absolutely. And actually there's one company I'm working with right now, and admittedly it's been a struggle, and I feel as if the first year in which the direction in which we were going was probably a little bit off target, because I wanted more and saw more for the company than what they did at the space they're at. So I needed to readjust my focus and where they needed to go, as well as have a conversation with the CEO. And they just weren't ready for some of the big things I saw for them. And I needed to bring it down and just focus on some small things like communication, or hey, how about we get together for a meeting, because they don't do that very often, and focus on some smaller tactical things rather than some larger strategic things I might focus on.
So as we're launching into the new year, I'd love for us to spend our time together talking about both sides, about what you're doing for businesses to help them kind of, reflect on what's not working, what's working, how to get that to the next level,
right,
since you help accelerate that process. And also for people that are really looking to reevaluate their personal business or just their lives. We all have very busy lives. Life gets really messy. Change is always happening. Kids are getting older. Parents are getting older. People are leaving the planet. Life never stops. So what are some things you could take people through that as we are launching into this new year that would be good to start reflecting on? What are some of the first exercises that you might want someone to take stock of their business or their personal life?
Well, that's a really great point. And I think taking stock or reflecting on the past year is one of the first things I would recommend. And it's something I always do. I take the opportunity right around Christmas. I think it's a very quiet time of year, particularly Christmas Day at least. Some people are celebrating.
If you're not
right.
a mother trying to make the magic happen, I agree.
Exactly right. But around that holiday time,
because business slows down.
Business
right,
slows down. People take vacations. So it's a good opportunity to sit and just take a look at, okay, how did I do this past year? If you had goals, if you had set goals that year, take a look at which ones you accomplished, which ones you didn't accomplish, and ask yourself, take a look at why didn't I accomplish that one? And also another key question I ask is always, do I want to bring this particular goal forward into the next year, or does it just no longer serve the direction I'm going? So reflection is a key thing to do at the end of a year before you launch into the new year. And I think looking at the goals you set hoping that you did set them, is a really good way to guide that analysis.
When I hear you say that, it reminds me of listening to some of the women talk about redoing your closets. And if you haven't worn it in a year, take it out and give it away. Because
Right.
it's really not that important to you, and you're not going to lose that 15 pounds in the next year to really probably get into it again. I wonder if it's the same thing as goals. If you haven't really checked that off the list and you've had it on the paper or in your head for a couple years, maybe it's time to say goodbye to that goal and replace it with something that you really want. Because if you want it, most people go for it. If they really don't, then it's hanging on the list like that old shirt or that old dress
Yeah.
that is never going to get worn.
Right. That's a really good example, and I wish my closets were more clean. There's things I haven't worn there in a couple of years. But thankfully with goals, I agree 100%. That's great, especially if it's been on there for a couple of years. Chances are, take it off. Leave room for something else, or create the
Because then
space.
you keep feeling bad that you're not accomplishing it.
Exactly.
But maybe there's something else ready to be born, as opposed to this old goal like, I still haven't mastered French. Well, maybe I stink at French and I'm not meant to,
Right.
something like
Right,
that.
and there's some reason why it's just not important now. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Take it off and see.
Yeah,
if
and maybe
it's-
later, maybe when the house is quieter, kids are older, because I think there's that saying that you can have it all but not all at once.
Yes.
And trying to figure out
Yeah.
what goals at what time in your life maybe makes sense. I never
Right.
really thought of it that way before.
And a good example, I mean, I know, I've forever wanted to write a book, and I've absolutely written, a couple hundred pages of one, but I've never gone as far as finishing it. It's been on the list for a while. And then, not too long ago, I just took it off. It was taking up space and mind share. And it's like, let's see, where it goes, whether or not it pops up again. So I think it's a really good example you gave of the closets and cleaning out those things that you haven't worn in a while. It's a good thing to do.
Well, the more interviews you have and the more people you work with, the more you'll have for your book in another 10 years.
That's also very true. I'm getting very
Maybe
close
5,
to
yeah.
It's actually back on the goal list again
Okay,
this year.
good.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good luck with that. That's
Thank you.
exciting. And
Thank
it's got to be just a process of not pressure, but you can't force yourself to be creative, I imagine, when you're sitting down to write. You have to be ready to have that flow or be in touch with what's supposed to come out as opposed to I must write now.
It actually, writing shows up many different ways, and there are some people that can just sit down when they feel creative and they write. But I've also read, and some of the best writers, it is a discipline. So you do want to sit down every morning and just write whatever comes out.
That's why I have no books. Not yet. I don't know what it'd be on, but yeah, okay. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so it can work.
It's a combination, right? Getting in the flow, but also sitting to allow that to happen. Otherwise,
Right,
it will never,
right.
ever.
And plus, I mean, if take a detour here and talk about writing for a bit, it's really interesting. One of the reasons it went off my goals for a while is because when I started having that dream, writing a book was a very significant thing, and you needed a publisher, and it was a very big process. Now, everybody has a book. Books have become business cards.
That's true.
So it's kind of diminished the aspect for me, and now I also have to understand the whole new technology of writing a book and e-books, and technology is not my thing. So
well, you'll find
I'll
someone
hire
that can help.
somebody.
Yeah, there's
Yes.
plenty of creative people all around us that will love to help you with
Yeah,
that situation. So when you're meeting with the businesses, let's start with businesses first. Do you kind of interview the whole team? What kind of process do you take them through? Because I'm assuming you're meeting with them as a group that we represent this entity, but yet you're working with individuals with their
Yes.
own strengths and weaknesses as well. So do you kind of do a deep dive on each of them as well as the business as a whole, or how do you balance that?
If the space is there, and I would like for the space to be there, because one of the things I find is that when the group comes together and sits at the table, they all bring their individual stuff to the table. And it's important to get up underneath each person's, whether it's, they may have a certain feeling about one of the other managers around the table, or they may have their own personal beliefs that they're bringing to the table that gets in the way of moving the whole company forward. So it is important to sit down and speak with each of them individually to help them clear all that out, so that when they do come to the table, everyone can be focused on the company goals. And that's the real important thing. And a lot of times there's dynamics that exist between the people that need to be worked through in order to ensure that the velocity can occur when they sit together at the table.
That's a great point. So what do you recommend for people who are like a one-man show or a one-woman show that have their own entrepreneurial business in marketing or writing, or there's a lot of creative people all around that
Right.
are hanging their own shingle? How would you
Right.
coach them to do this process by themselves?
Well, I like to call those people solopreneurs.
Solopreneurs,
Yeah,
okay.
and there are a tremendous amount of those people. There's a growing number, and I think actually after this past recession, a lot of people who left their jobs and couldn't find a job in a while started to hang out their own shingles. So there are a lot of them. And in terms of the process, in terms of gaining velocity and things like that, is that what you were referring to?
Gaining velocity and just the discipline of doing it by yourself when you don't have a
Right.
team to bounce things off of so much.
Right. That is actually that is a challenge. In terms of getting the velocity, I would absolutely say establish a vision for yourself, establish some goals for yourself and the company, and then put together a plan. Those, if you do those simple things, you're going to establish some velocity in your business. Otherwise, you may just float around for a little while. In terms of the fact that they work for themselves, it can be really hard and lonely out there. So I would encourage them to join a lot of groups, a lot of networking groups, go out there, get involved in your community and things like that, just to stay in touch with what's going on, especially in your industry. Try and find groups and join them to stay on top of things going on in your industry.
I think with, to your point, after the recession, with the internet being what it is now, it's amazing the amount of apps are now a business, right?
Yeah.
We had some guys on that did, who we use, which is a new app that's coming out, so people can refer people to friends and different business, from haircutters to lawyers to coaches, things like that. But, Wikipedia, I mean, people are creating things where all of a sudden the little businesses are turning into major operations. So those are things that when we were growing up, that didn't exist at all. So it's an interesting idea of even coaching college kids to figure out what do you want to be when you grow up, when there are so many options that it's kind of like, wow, how do you decide?
Right, and it's interesting coaching college kids. I haven't coached college kids yet. And it is a completely different world. There's so many of them are going out there and starting things on their own, a lot in the technology field. And they're brilliant. They're brilliant, and they're doing it on, their own way. I think perhaps our generation, we felt as if first you had to do this, then you had to do this, then you do that. They've thrown the rule book out, and they're succeeding.
They're like, I'd like to make my millions before 25. Thank you very much.
Right, and if they can succeed, more power to them. I think at some point they'll want and need the advice and guidance and wisdom that people who have been there can provide for them. But as far as getting launched, they have the energy, they have the creativity, they have the ideas, and they don't have the fear. They will go knock on anyone's door, and the technology today allows them to do that. So I say just, let them go at it.
Yeah, it's a brave new world in that way, and a lot more fun than thinking, well, you get to be a teacher or a nurse, or you get to, the limitations of my mother and that generation up. It's amazing the changes for that.
Yeah, it really is limitless. It's decide what you want to be in the world, and I really do believe you can create it. There's just so many jobs out there. It's amazing what the way they find, ways to generate revenue.
Yeah, and their passion, being able to come through and be a source as well. And,
I
know a while ago there was a gentleman who came from Wall Street, and he was just so frustrated with the whole game, he decided to launch his band full time, and that had just been a gig before. And he was getting marketing out there, and there was just so many ways that he could do that.
Yeah.
But I thought, what a wild thing, and maybe it was going to work full time or not, but he had been saving up, had made the big bucks, and he's like he was tired and wanted to have his passion work for him now, and putting it out there. But it's neat when you hear people that are doing things
and
like
with the crowdsourcing these days, I mean the crowdfunding, there's so much that people are launching their musical careers that way.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
So we have to take a quick break. Stay with us. Soon we'll be right back with Rich Largman, Empire of Hope, talking about launching into the new year.
Local government, local educational institutions, and local community members all use cable access TV to communicate their message. They depend upon it as an affordable means of outreach. Public educational and government access television empowers local government agencies, individuals, and groups to use the media to speak directly to their constituents in a more direct and cost-effective way. Make sure everyone has a voice. Support your local PEG channels.
Hi, welcome back to the Career Corner. I'm here with my special guest, Rich Largman. We're getting ready to talk about how to turn your inspiration into success for the new year. So Rich, what are some tips you can take us through to think of how to turn your dreams into something that is really moving forward and kind of finally making those resolutions come true?
Right. Well, it's interesting about inspiration. So many people have it at the beginning of a year, and they're setting resolutions and they're setting goals. But the challenge with that is inspiration disappears in an instant. As soon as you have to go back to the routine of your life and your job and your kids and the food shopping and chores and all that, the inspiration can disappear very quickly. So you want to get focused as soon as possible. Inspiration requires immediate, attention. So when it hits you, you want to try and capture it. But even when you do capture it, as I said, it can fade. So one of the things you want to do is, there's actually 3 steps that I will work with my clients, whether it's an individual or business, to help them take that inspiration and then carry it through powerfully to the end of the year so that they can achieve their goals. And that is, the 3 steps are clarity, cleanup, and catalyst. So it's clarity in your vision and goals, it's cleanup in anything that may be holding you back, and then the catalyst, to power you forward, and that's setting a plan in place.
How long do you spend on each of those, and can we dive into each one of them a little bit?
Absolutely. I'd love to do that. And it depends on how long I spend on them, depends on each individual client. They're all so different. Some people may take longer to get clear on their vision and their goals. Some may take longer to get the plan in place. So it'll all depend on the client. But when it comes to the first step, the clarity of their vision and goals, the first thing they want to do is get an understanding of where it is that they're heading towards. And that's the vision. And, actually, the newsletter that I wrote recently, I referred to it as the philosophy of living. Which
that was a great newsletter, by the way.
No, thank you. And what we're referring to there is, what is the discipline that kind of rules your daily actions, or the principle that rules your daily actions? And it's the same thing in a business. What is it? Where are you headed? If you're looking at your vision. And when I talk about visions, I try to get them to focus on 3 to 5 years, no further out. A lot of people may try and go further out. I just feel like it becomes Disney-like. So I try and keep things tangible. It becomes a dream.
Yeah, big dresses and waiting for new friends to come by.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I like to keep things more tangible so they can actually get their hands around it and work on it. So I keep it 3 to 5 years. And once they have a very clear sense of what that is, I will ask them, okay, so great, what do you need to do this year to get there? And those become your goals. And, the thing about, some people will just have goals for goals' sake. They'll just think up goals without that vision.
Yeah, what if you don't really know what you want your goal to be? Or you think, well, my life is happy now, and I don't know what I want 3 to 5 years to look like.
Right. That I always say that I'd rather have someone have goals than no goals. But if you can have goals with a vision or a direction, it's really important. And I'll share 2 quick stories as
Please.
to why. I was listening to an economist, an interview on the radio, and it was an economist being interviewed. And it was really interesting because at the time it was in the middle of the recession, and they were talking about, obviously, the economy and is it growing. And this economist talked about how there's this paradigm in America that we always have to grow. We always have to be getting better. And so if you're a company, you have to have more sales, you have to have more revenue, and it's grow, grow, grow. And I think certainly if I were to talk to any of my clients, we would all pretty much agree. It's like, yeah, that's kind of what you want to do.
Yeah.
But then the economist said something that was really interesting. He said, if you think about it, growth for growth's sake is the definition of cancer. And it really struck me, and it stopped the interviewer in his tracks. And what it really had me understand was that it is important to have that thing you're growing towards. So you know when you get there, and it's something that inspires you, it pulls you forward, rather than just like, well, I don't really know why I have this goal or what I'm really shooting for. So it really speaks to the power of a vision. And then there's the other thing I wanted to share was a Japanese proverb that really captures it. And it says that vision without action is a daydream, but action without vision is a nightmare. So you want to understand.
Vision is a nightmare. Interesting.
Yeah. So you want to have an understanding of where you're going. So you want to have that vision, and then you want to set your goals, and you want to have clarity on your goals. You want to get you want to have them be specific. You want to have them serve the vision. Everything that you do should feed up to up to the vision.
Helping that manifest. Do you work on people to within like the year goals too? Like, because you mentioned 3 to 5 years, but I'm
Right.
assuming there's got to be some quick hits. They want some quick wins also sometimes.
Absolutely. I mean, once they do, and a quick win is a really good. If I'm working with a company that has just been struggling and they're kind of down, it's important to get some quick wins so that you can build momentum and get traction there. But I absolutely do work on the yearly goals, and the way that shows up is once they have that goal, the goals for the year, then put a plan in place. That's the catalyst piece. And the catalyst, you're looking for momentum. And if we think back to our chemistry classes, catalyst is something you add to a mixture that speeds the process along. And that's what I believe a plan is. So I will sit down with them once they have established what they see as their goals for the year. And it's not a 20 or 30 page business plan that can really intimidate people. It's a very simple one-page plan that I have them put together where the goal is on the top of the sheet, the months are there as well, and on the side of the sheet are milestones. And milestones are those things that show you're making progress towards that goal. So they list them down on the left-hand side, and then I ask them to mark what month they believe they can or will achieve that milestone. And that's it. That right there is the plan, because that's what will hold them accountable. Now, of course, they have to, the key thing is that they revisit it. They have to look at it on a regular basis so they can understand, okay, what am I supposed to be doing this month? But it holds them accountable and drives them forward in a catalyst type of way.
Yeah, it's. I was working with a coach who's a friend, Mark Riesenberg, and he loved the saying, "Don't think it, ink it." About how important it is to get it out of your head and get it onto the paper, so you can be looking at it, so you know what you're moving towards. In that way.
Yeah, and there was a study that was done that was very powerful, and it was looking at goal setting. And what they found is they looked at 4 different levels of goal setting, or 4 different types of people: those that don't set goals, those that do set goals, those that set goals and write them down, and then those that set goals, write them down, and tell someone about them. And what this study found was the further along that spectrum you went, the more successful you were and the more likely you were to achieve all the goals you set. So you do want to write them down. You do want to ink them. Absolutely. It makes a huge difference. And actually, another thing that I found that's very interesting is, going back to New Year's resolutions in the beginning of the year, only 8% of the people keep their resolutions. And when I speak about goals, and I've spoken all over the country on this topic, and I take an informal poll of the people in the room, and when I say how many people have goals, and how many people have written goals, and how many people have a plan, it starts out only about 30 people have goals, and then it goes down from there. So it's a very, very powerful thing to do. If you haven't done it yet and you want to shift your life and change it, I strongly encourage
Get
this.
the goals out there. And I think sometimes people think that maybe they have to be in some more senior position or someone loftier, or have a bigger title to have goals, when we can have goals in all different areas of our lives, whether it's spiritual goals, of meditation, of yoga, of fitness, of eating. I'm going to cook more this year, but you have to start putting some plan in place, even if it's just for little. But I think that also, like you say, when you get momentum and you get those quick wins, it adds fuel to the fire, and you feel like, yay, I did this one, or I'm moving towards something that I really want to shift in my life. And I think some people might feel, well, everything, it's time to make the donuts, and I'm just getting up and doing my job, or without adding that sweetness or something new, or to challenge themselves in a way that you can also support yourself to get there.
Right. And I think the challenging part is a key piece of it. You do want to stretch just a little bit. And I agree with you. You can and should do these for anything. And I have 2 sets of goals. I've got my business goals and I've got my personal goals, which, includes everything from dating to, climbing mountains to, going on a 30-mile bike ride this year.
It's kind of like a better way to manifest your bucket list almost, right?
Yeah. Well, because, especially, there is a magic in writing it down. And then there's a magic in putting the plan in place. And I've just recently discovered that. When I started working with my clients on putting a plan in place, I said to myself, I better start doing this. Because I've done goals for about 15 years, but I didn't really put the plans in place till, I started working with my clients. It is unbelievable. It is truly a catalyst. I achieved my goals before, but with a plan in place, I'm achieving them much more quickly. Because again, it holds me accountable.
It would be ironic if you were a business accelerator without having goals.
Yes, and thankfully, thanks
Do what
to,
I say, not what I do. So I can say,
Exactly.
hey, it works, and you're also proof that it is working for
Yeah,
you.
I for my own integrity, I feel as if
Mm-hmm.
I need to do that, and and any exercise I take my clients through, I make sure that I put myself through it first, so
That
that
it's proven success.
yeah, or at least I know what they're suffering through.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Well, like you said, some of it is doing stretch goals and being uncomfortable a little bit.
right.
And can we talk a little bit about how discipline comes to play? We have about 3 minutes left.
Sure.
Because I know we often, kind of get off that track when we really want to be on it, and then something kind of comes along that's a shinier object and squirrel, and we're all over the
Right.
place. So how, discipline can be your friend too. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, and you're right about that. Discipline can be our friend. It can also be our enemy, and I think it goes back to what you were saying in the beginning about, listen, sometimes a goal just falls off the list. You got to clean out that closet and, get rid of the old clothes that don't fit. So if you're pushing for a goal that doesn't really serve you, that discipline isn't going to work, and you should just get rid of the goal. But if you really still do want that goal, then you want to look at the discipline. And if you're finding that it's hard for you to hold yourself accountable, then you got to get that buddy, whether it's your wife or your husband or your spouse or significant other, which could be difficult. That may not work out too well for the marriage, but maybe it's a friend. And that goes, going back to that study, that fourth piece was, and you tell someone about the goal. So you got to tell somebody. It could be a coach, business accelerator, whatever it looks like. But that's a very helpful way to increase your discipline is getting help on it by telling somebody and asking them to help
Yeah,
you.
it's kind of like having people have running buddies. Like,
Yeah.
hey, this is the time we're doing it, and it does make you more accountable
Yeah,
in that way. So we
absolutely.
have about a minute or so left. So if people want to find out more information about you, what's the best way to go? What's your website?
It's the Empire of Hope.
Empire of Hope. Okay.
Yeah, empireofhope.com, and there's a contact page on there as well. So you
And can people
find
sign
me.
up to get your newsletters?
Yep, there's
I find those to be very inspirational as well.
Thank you. Yeah, up
Yeah.
on the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a place where you can sign up, and that's a nice way actually to get discipline. You'll get a message from me every month, kind of reminding you about different aspects of your goals in your life, and looking to encourage you forward.
That's great. So for people that are ready to launch into the new year, what's your last message to them as far as
I would say
making it the best year yet?
keep in mind those 3 C's. You get clarity on your vision and goals. Clean up if there's things that are holding you back. They could be a fear or a hidden belief system you have. Those will get in the way of you achieving your goals. And the last thing is the catalyst. Put the plan in place. It will absolutely help you.
Great. Thank you so much. I've
Thank you.
so enjoyed our time together. I'm going to go home and make my new goals. I haven't done that yet. They're in here, but I haven't inked it
Good.
yet. So.
You got to ink them.
Yes, I will. Thank you so much, Rich.
Thank
And
you.
thank you all for joining us on the Career Corner. Check us out on YouTube. We have lots of great videos from prior guests. And until we meet again, I wish you much career success.